Reed's defense team is accusing a witness of perjury. As WBZ's Penny Kmitt tells us, the defense says it has evidence that a first responder downplayed her connection to another witness in the case.
Today kicked off week 2 of the Karen Reed murder trial, and her defense attorneys wasting no time this morning claiming that one of the witnesses from last week, a Canton firefighter, lied under oath.
It's very clear to us that Katie McLaughlin perjured herself.
Canton firefighter Katie McLaughlin was just one of several first responders to take the stand last week. She was present the moment John O'Keefe's body was found after prosecutors say Karen Reed hit him with her car and left him to die in the snow. She, like several other first responders, testified that they heard Reed say, quote, I hit him after O'Keefe's body was discovered. But Reed's attorneys called her testimony and credibility into question, questioning her about her connection to the daughter of another Boston police officer who owns the home that O'Keefe's body was found outside of. This was her testimony last week.
So do you know Caitlin Albert?
I do.
You're friends with Caitlin Albert?
I would say more acquaintances, not close friends.
Defense attorneys now saying that was false testimony, as photos of the two allegedly resurfaced over the weekend. The potential perjury will be discussed today or tomorrow, according to the judge, but could be another puzzle piece in the defense's narrative that Karen Reed is being framed. This morning, we also saw dash cam footage from the moment O'Keefe's body was discovered, and this afternoon, we plan to hear from more first responders. In Dedham, I'm Penny Kmitt, WBZ News.
Jurors in the Karen Reed murder trial heard 911 calls from the morning that her police officer boyfriend, John O'Keefe, was found dead. Reed is accused of hitting O'Keefe with her SUV in 2022, leaving him to die in the snow. New at 6, WBZ's Christina Rex spoke to Reed about listening to those 911 calls.
You've got to get here, okay?
Okay. Emotional moments inside court as the O'Keefe family listens to the 911 call from the early morning hours of January 29th, 2022. That call came from Jennifer McCabe when she, Karen Reed, and Kerry Roberts found John O'Keefe's body outside 34 Fairview Road in Canton. In the background, you can hear Karen screaming.
And who's that in the background? Is that someone related?
Okay, that's his girlfriend. No, I think she's passed away.
Testimony revealed that Karen Reed became suicidal in the hours that followed. Her father called police on her.
Threats to take her own life.
Karen, what was it like for you to hear those 911 calls?
I've heard those many times too, Christine.
Okay.
They're not easy, but they're revealing.
Monday's witnesses focused mostly on an unusual and challenging police investigation in tough weather. Officers blowing the snow off of possible blood evidence, then collecting it in a neighbor's borrowed Solo cup and transporting it in a Stop and Shop bag. Also allegations from the defense that officers actually damaged Karen Reed's taillight in the investigation.
During the removal process, that light was broken even more.
No.
And the afternoon ended with Canton Sergeant Michael Lank on the stand, but without the jury present. He was testifying to a previous relationship with the homeowners at Fairview Road. Now, it hasn't been decided yet whether or not that previous relationship will actually be admitted in front of the jury. We expect to find out tomorrow. In Dedham, Christina Rex, WBZ News.
A new look at a key piece of evidence in Karen Reed's murder trial, namely the tail light of her SUV that prosecutors say proves she hit and killed Boston police officer John O'Keefe. Now, the evidence is slowly coming out in court. Too slowly, according to the judge. New tonight at 6, WBZ's Christina Rex shows us the judge's words of warning for lawyers on both sides.
Tuesday's testimony ended with jurors seeing a quick shot of Karen Reed's car in John O'Keefe's driveway shortly after his body was found. Remember, the state claims Reed hit O'Keefe, damaging her right rear taillight in the process.
Doesn't it look like it's missing in that video we just left on?
No.
On the right side?
No.
There will be more on that Wednesday. Jurors Tuesday saw pictures of more evidence, like this shot of broken taillight the Canton police chief claimed to find at the crime scene 6 days later when the snow melted. And the broken cocktail cup police found right near O'Keefe's lifeless body. But Lieutenant Michael Lank was grilled by the defense about how he handled the investigation, like why he interviewed all potential witnesses inside 34 Fairview Road together, and why he used solo cups to collect blood from the scene.
Did the best that we could with the situation, with the weather, a deteriorating situation.
The early part of the day was plagued by sidebar conferences, with jurors sent in and out of the courtroom while lawyers debated evidence. 6 days in and still on Canton police testimony, the judge warned.
We're taking an awful lot of these jurors' times. We're taking days and weeks. Let's not squander it by, repetitive evidence or taking time like this that we shouldn't need to take. Okay, let's move this case.
Jurors in Karen Reed's murder trial heard witnesses describe John O'Keefe's last night alive. Now, this case has played out pretty slowly so far, but new at 6, WBZ's Christina Rex has learned that a key witness is going to be taking the stand tomorrow.
Jurors got a look at the body language between Karen Reed and John O'Keefe just hours before his death in 2022. This shot from inside CF McCarthy's in Canton when Karen arrived while John drank beers with buddies. Friends there testified to their demeanor.
Before Mr. O'Keefe's passing, would you describe their interactions to be normal and caring and affectionate?
Yes.
Then surveillance inside the Waterfall Bar and Grill in Canton, where the couple met up with more friends.
I noticed the opposite.
Describe that.
They were affectionate toward each other, loving toward each other, and to the point where my wife even made a comment, why are you not like that with me?
Inside the Waterfall with them, fellow Boston police officer Brian Albert, who owns 34 Fairview Road, the Canton home where the group ended up going after, and where O'Keefe was later found dead outside. Defense attorneys showed more surveillance in their cross-examination, like this shot of Brian Albert and ATF agent Brian Higgins seemingly play fighting in the bar before the after party. Remember, the defense claims O'Keefe died in a fight rather than being hit by Karen's car. The bartender who served the group also testified.
Nobody really seemed highly intoxicated to you, correct?
No.
The defense thinks that tussle video paints a different picture of the night.
But it speaks for itself. These two guys
roughhousing,
grappling, sparring, looking like they're fighting, practicing fighting techniques. You tell me.
And while jurors did get to hear from many friends who were out with the couple that night, they've yet to hear from any witnesses who were actually at the house at 34 Fairview Road. That could change tomorrow. Karen Reed's defense attorney tells me Chris Albert is next to take the stand. In Dedham, Christina Rex, WBZ News.
Karen Reed's murder trial, her attorneys are using cross-examination to try to make the case that Reed is the victim of a cover-up and not a killer. New at 6, WBZ's Christina Rex explains who her attorneys will argue is the real suspect.
It's Christopher Albert.
Chris Albert is currently a Canton selectman, Canton pizza shop owner, and the brother of Brian Albert, the Boston cop who owned the home where John O'Keefe's body was found on the lawn. Chris was out with the group at the Waterfall Bar that night.
Fair to say you didn't go to 34 Fairview that night?
I did not.
But he and wife Julie say they skipped the after party at 34 Fairview, which was actually the Albert family's former childhood home. They found out what happened the next morning when Julie went to drop off a birthday treat for her nephew and discovered the McCabe's, Brian and Nicole Albert, and Brian Higgins at the house.
Everyone was visibly upset, and I asked what's going on. And another maybe 30 seconds went by, and Jen said, something's happened to John.
The defense zeroed in Thursday on the Alberts as a well-connected family, including their connection to the lead investigator on this case.
You would agree with me that the Albert family is well known in the town of Canton.
We have a big family.
Karen's lawyers then shifted the focus to the Alberts' middle son, Colin, who they say came home that fateful night after his parents, placing him at 34 Fairview Road with his cousins when John O'Keefe arrived.
Son Colin was not home, correct?
That's correct.
At that time, you had no personal knowledge of where he had been that night, correct?
That's correct.
Since that time, you know that he was at your brother Brian's house that night, Brian Albert.
That's correct.
And the defense has said in past hearings that Colin Albert, who was a teenager at the time, is one of their 3 suspects, along with Brian Higgins and Brian Albert. Now, Colin's mom, Julie, will be back on the stand for cross-examination first thing tomorrow morning.
This morning's hearing picked up with the defense questioning one of John O'Keefe's neighbors, Julie Albert, about her relationship with the wife of the lead investigator in the case.
You don't recall telling this jury yesterday that when I asked you about how often you spoke to Courtney Proctor by phone, you said, well, rarely.
I don't remember.
What is your definition of rarely?
Not daily. Not daily, not... Yes.
Once in a blue moon?
No.
Rarely doesn't mean to you 67 phone conversations within a 7-month period, does it?
A 67 time period in how many, 8 months?
In about 7 months, 67 times.
It's not a lot. I wouldn't think it's a lot in 7 months.
3 times in one day? Is that rarely?
No, but that wasn't every day.
Now, Julie Albert was also asked about the time that she left the Waterfall Bar and Grill on January 28th. She told the court she went home early because of a migraine. After she took the stand, there was a break in a hearing over the blogger who is known as Turtle Boy. Prosecutors wanted him excluded from the courtroom during some of the testimony. He is facing charges for allegedly harassing some witnesses in the case. The judge ultimately agreed to exclude him during some of the testimony.
Because of the chilling effect that Mr. Kearney's presence, I find, will have on the witness's testimony, I'm going to excuse him while the named witnesses in the Commonwealth's motion. Julie Nagel.
Now, Nicole Albert also took the stand. She is the wife of Brian Albert and owned the home where John O'Keefe was found dead. During cross-examination, she was asked why they sold the house just months after the incident.
It was in our plans that, kids were starting to get older. We were looking to possibly downsize. So at the end of 2021, my husband's brother had sold his house.
Objection.
No, I'm going to allow that.
My husband's brother had sold his house and got a good deal for it. It sold pretty quickly. The market was really good at that time.
Albert told the court that the house at 34 Fairview Road was sold in April 2023, a little over a year after O'Keefe's death. Albert was also asked if she talked about the case with anyone before being questioned by police.
Ms. Albert, you and your family discussed this case at length before your interviews with law enforcement, correct?
Objection.
I'll allow it. Did you?
Of course, we discussed the case, but just everything that was going on, we were trying to figure out what happened.